What?
Peace.
One, two, oh yeah. Okay, welcome everyone. This is Tea Breaks and Beats, where we talk to the finest of Leeds. Series 1, Part 1. Tonight we have Mr. Agent M.
How you doing, guys? You right?
We have Jack Danz, Defenders of Style.
Hello, hello, hello.
And we've got Mr. Paul Edmead, Oddball. He's not an oddball, that's his name. BTI. So what we're going to do tonight is, tonight is just purely about anything that we can learn from people that obviously spend a whole lifetime sitting and crafting music and their art as best they can. And they've all made a name for themselves internationally. They've all done a great deal in the industry with a lot of different people, and they've all done it in hip hop, which isn't the easiest, especially in the UK. So they've all got an interesting. We're all going to get something out of this, one way or another. I think they're going to get something out of each other being here as well, to be fair, because they all bring something different to the table. So the format we've decided to go with is we're going to listen to one track that they've chosen, that they love, and then we're going to ask them to pick it apart bit by bit. So what was the creative process in them doing this? Once that's done and we can get into the questions, we'll then put it over to yourselves. I'm assuming that you're here because you've got an interest in production, in music, in the industry, in the arts. So how you doing? And so we'll just open it out as a Q&A once they've talked, so you can make sure that you've got any questions that you want to know about equipment, time, mixing, mastering, anything that you think these guys do really well. That's the time to ask at the end. So are we happy with that? Yeah, so we'll start with Jack Danz.
Hello.
Hello, Jack. So I met you many years ago, Jack.
Yeah, you did.
At Hyde Park when you had just started. You were an MC. You've then moved into making the beats for Defenders.
That's right, yeah.
Which is Leeds' longest serving crew now.
Really?
Which deserves a round of applause. That's
wow,
it.
Damn.
Yeah. So Defenders of Styles have been together the longest. Must be in rank alongside anyone in the UK.
Cheers, Tony. You're too flattering, mate.
Well, no, this is it. I'm just saying what the facts are. So you've over that time, you've crafted a sound, which I think is the hardest thing to do as a producer. You've got that murky post, big boom bap sound that you can feel the music when you make it. So I thought we could start with you, go through one of your tracks, which you've chosen, Black Josh, Judge Judy.
That's right, yeah.
Yeah, so we'll go with that, and then we'll talk through it.
Penda Najua ebu enda Return to sender Cause empire mina jenga Say what you want but trust me Only Judy can judge me Think what you want but trust me Only Judy can judge me.
I'm the feral child in feral Ghana. I swim with piranhas in my Prada. In the concrete jungle with the llama. On the craft and we set the alarm off. Sirens ringing for the drama. I didn't learn from my father. Made mistakes, life's harder. I picked the key up in a car park for the dirty sessions in apartments. I got the grams and they want me to harp it. I tell them find me and both you put half in. Long sight, I got my market. Ah shit, just like heroin in the darkest. Nah, kid you wait, I shot a demon, you're a target. I can't miss. harmless. Anyone I cut them off calmly. Them bloodsuckers need garlic, la. I crash on the scene like kamikaze. In the field like Cantona. See me ghost ride in a phantom car. Double gang it's blah. We got business and we handle ours. Shining foreign like spangled stars. We got sauce and they sample ours like free testers, them man frauds. Bitch.
Say what you want, but trust me.
Trust me, trust me.
Only Judy can judge me.
Trust me, trust me.
Think what you want, but trust me.
Trust me, trust me.
Only Judy can judge me. Violent images keep me up at night, looking back like it was in another life. Arusha summer nights, Buddha on the pipe, prove my mother right, doing what I like. Then my fro I chana, smoking for my nana. Ask me if I'm high, never know a pana. Jesus hold my hand, a Coca-Cola Fanta, vision blurry like a Motorola camera. It's all going well and then I throw a spanner, but that story's better left alone a chana. No my swallies because I don't know the answer. Feel like E.T. but I'm trying to phone Wakanda. Bana, crossing borders like Namanga. Travel Nikishika Panga. I'm sitting up and watching manga. Yeah, Naji penda penda. Najua ebu enda. Return to sender. Cause empire mina jenga. Say what you want but trust me.
Trust me.
Only Judy can judge me.
Judge me.
Think what you want, but trust me.
Trust me.
Only Judy can judge me.
That's the tune right there, yeah.
Look what we have today.
Thank you very much.
So yeah, let's go in on that one. So how did the creative process start with that? Did it start with, well, just take it away really?
Well, I sort of made the beat without the intention of it becoming that track. So it was just a loop that I'd made, and I sent a pack off to Lee Scott, who's the owner of Bly Records, and he passed them on to Black Josh, who's an artist on his label, and he picked out that loop, and then he came back to me with that hook on it, which is actually an artist called Narito, who's also on their label, and from there I extended the hook into a full song, and then they got Black Josh to rap on it as well, so it's kind of a collaborative effort on a lot of fronts. Yeah.
So did you all have to be together eventually to make it happen?
No, it just happened that it was all a bit of an internet thing, so I just sent it to them. They recorded the vocals, sent it back. Then I took the vocals out, did a few more things to the beat here and there, and then sent it back to them again.
When you say did a few more things, that's go on. What equipment are you doing all this on, Jack?
I mean, me personally, I just use Logic Pro. I've got a Mac computer, a microcord keyboard, and some good speakers, and that's about it.
And the internet.
Oh yeah, the internet. That's the crucial ingredient.
So is there anything you want to talk about in terms of how you bring it together with the mix?
In that song particular? Yeah.
Why do you love that song? Why did you pick that one?
Well, it's one of the most recent ones, and I really like the hook. So it's just different to a lot of UK rap, do you know what I mean? So it sort of stood out for me for that reason, because it's kind of melodic in a way, but it's also hypnotic at the same time, do you know what I mean? But I'm just kind of proud of the production as well, and you can watch the video on YouTube. It's on the Bly Records YouTube channel, and it's a really good video. Shot it in Estonia and stuff, so it's like a really polished piece of work altogether, do you know what I mean?
I saw you talking to Stephen about some of the things you were doing with going into the production of it and how you...
Oh yeah, so in that track, it's like the hi-hats kind of sound like percussion. This is what I was just saying to it's just like a case of rolling off the top end on the hi-hats with a filter, and then it sounds more like a wooden block or something, do you know what I mean? Because, you know, when sometimes it's a bit piercing, that high end on tracks, especially in hip-hop. People forget to take the very top part of the hats, and I mean, that's kind of a bit of a geeky thing, but that's what we're here for, right?
That's what we're here for, yeah. Go more of that stuff, Jack.
Yeah, something else on that track that I'm an advocate of is the Sound Toys plugin called Decapitator for the bass, because it's just literally a sine wave, but you put this plugin on it, and it just makes it sound like a bass guitar. Do you know what I mean? Like really full and warm.
Yeah, nice. Has anyone got any questions about that track you want to ask Jack about what he's done, how he's done it? I mean, I've got some more general ones for him, but no, that's fine. I was going to ask you about when you work with Defenders of Style, you know.
Yeah.
How does that sort of process work? Do you start with a beat there, or do you work with acapellas, or?
It's usually the case of I just make loops by myself, and then like 16 bars or whatever, like loads of different beats, because you can knock them up pretty fast, you know what I mean, before you like structure it and like do all the finishing touches. And then I'll just have like 10 of them in a playlist or a folder, and then we'll go through it, and then if someone likes the sound of something, start writing a hook to that. And then exactly. Yeah, you've just got like a skeleton of a load of songs. Do you know what I mean? If it keeps sounding good every time you go back to it, then you finish it. Do you know what I mean? But
so when you're actually writing the beats, do you think about different MCs that you're writing for, or are you just in your own world thinking I don't know where this is going, or are you thinking of someone in mind that this will work for this guy?
In some cases, like I hear stuff, you know, just on like other artists, US artists or whatever, and then I'm like, I want to make something that sounds like that. But most of the time, it's just see what comes out, because you can have a plan when you go into it of what you want it to sound like, but it never really works out like that. Do you know what I mean?
Are there any producers that you'd like to sound like? I know that's an awful thing to ask, but do you think, right, this is the guy I'd really love to sound, be a...
Well, there's like all the greats that, you know, I was early influenced by, which is just obvious. If you're into hip hop and you don't know about that stuff, then you're lost, aren't you, really? But these days, there's just so many. It's like, it's crazy. Like, kids are making some stuff that I'm just like, no way. Do you know what I mean? So there's too many to mention, to be honest. I'm quite heavily following at the minute, like, the Gods Connect movement, like New York underground stuff. Just like classic sound, but really distorted. Big fan of that stuff. Artists like Tuami and 1-2. Really good beat heads, them guys.
So they're keeping you on your toes.
Yeah, man.
Do you have any sort of professionally? Do you have any rules in the studio?
How do you mean?
Well, you know, some people are, you're not allowed to drink, or you get here on time, or
no, you know me, Tony.
No,
what do you think?
I don't think you do.
90% of songs are about getting smashed. You know what I mean? So, what do you reckon?
I think it's quite loose in your studio.
Yeah. It's all happened in there. You want to see when the DS Office mixtape got done, mate? I was, yeah. They know how to drink.
That should be a video. Is this all done in a bedroom studio, or do you have to rent somewhere for this?
No, it's all in the bedroom.
Oh, everything's done there, so you do it all at home. No
recording, mastering, mixing, everything. Yeah.
And what's the mixing is always the thing that catches a lot of people out, isn't it? How have you managed to?
The mixing or the mastering?
The mixing. We'll get on to mastering.
Well, I mean, for me, it's like you just mix as you go along. There's certain things that, like, you know that you're going to do to... I mean, let's say, like, the skeleton of the track's always going to be, like, the kick drum and the bass. Do you know what I mean? So, like, I know in every song that I'm going to do a certain EQ on the kick drum. So I can have like a template set up that's already got those certain things that are going to be in every song. Like, the mastering chain is always the same.
Favorite thing, innit? Like that favorite thing, lad.
What do you say?
Like your favorite sound of the kick drum, your favorite sound of.
Yeah, pretty much.
Shit you've been through, you've gone, I want that one.
Yeah. It's a lot. It's just putting time into it.
Would you also say that?
A lot of trial and error.
Sorry, would you also say that's like your signature as well? That skeleton, like when you go in, that's your signature sound.
I mean, that's just music. Like, you've got if the relationship between the kick and the bass isn't right, then you don't have a good song in any style of music. Do you know what I mean? If it's got drums and bass in it.
Not everyone gets it right, though.
It's
I mean,
difficult,
you're
man,
taking
because
your
they're both
talent for granted a little bit, because You know, we run a label and we get sent a lot of stuff that isn't mixed right, don't we? And you'd be surprised, you know, we don't get music as crisp as this. You're taking it for granted, and that's what I'm really interested, because we have to sort of go back to them and say, you need to work on the mix a little bit. And like, well, we don't know what we're doing, but we know it right. That it's that sort of, like, you know, if they
basically right at the bottom end of the song, it's like very easy for like frequencies to get confused with one another, and what happens then is they cancel each other out, so you end up losing bass as opposed to gaining it. So it's like, it's about creating space for either. When you start out with your track, say, choose if you want the kick drum at the bottom or the bass line at the bottom. So, I mean, it gets deeper and that. It's like keys, right? So if you're going from, like, let's say, it's like F sharp, F, E, D sharp, and D. These can all have a really good sub end, right? So you can have the kick above the bass in that instance. But any of the other notes, the octave that they, I mean, the frequency that they land at in terms of being a sub is too high in cases, so you have to have the kick below it. It's like mathematics, basically, when you break it down. But you got to decide whether you want the kick to lead the song or the bass to lead the song, and you know, process your stuff accordingly.
So why don't some people get it right then? There must be an art to it.
Because if you just keep banging stuff in and you know, you're just merging it all together, you end up cancelling. It's like you're just cancelling the frequencies, and it's not going to sound very good.
Some people are just born with it. Yeah.
That's what I think. It's getting that out of him.
Hard to get that sound, man. Just roll out of bed and...
Nah, put a graft in me, mate. I'm telling you. 10 years of every day doing this shit. It's not easy, man.
Well, with this track here, how long would that have taken you?
Say that again, sorry, mate.
Sorry, how long would this track say from start to finish?
I'm going to say like 4 hours.
That's not a lot of time, is it?
No.
But how long would it have taken you 10 years ago?
On the same computer that I use now. I used to have a computer where it was like you press like mix down or bounce or whatever, and you have to go make a cup of tea and then come back. Do you know what I mean? But now it's like literally press it, boom, it's done. Do you know what I mean? It's crazy. Way back, man.
That's nice, Jack. I think we'll.
Cheers, bud.
Yeah, we'll definitely come back to you, and if you want to chip in with stuff, well, that's brilliant. Shall we? Can we have a round of applause for Jack? Mr. M, Mr. Agent M. Let's get stuck into your choice. You sent me two that I thought were amazing.
Clap. I think clap.
Yeah.
Do clap. There's a good story behind that one as well. So.
Someone needs a freaking clap up in there, man. Yo, this is sus. Bully. If I wanted to mass murder this rap circus, I'd grab the most merciless rappers with gas burners and tell them to burn the tent down and smoke out the week. I hear the crowd scream as they're scrambling out the seats. I'm Chuck Norris on speed, I'm Carl Withers on lean. In army fatigue, waiting on word of my next mission. Radio stations are misbehaving, you're changing the format of this game, and I ain't participating or paying your wages for playing the same. Syndicated major labels are oversaturating to brainwash us. Excuse me if I'm rude, but I ain't in the mood to be that new jigaboo dancing just to get signed. You can keep that shoe polish, tattoos on your noggin, overcompensating your images. Lyrics ain't your forte, mate. You're a lost case in a locked cage, in a box where there's no gate. Slave on a rope chain. My mission, militia, lift your missile simple. Start with a lynching while sitting here eating on my minstrels. You're all on your menstrual cycle, regurgitating the same as the last bitch. Now I'm parring your bastards, raised in a bar, arm lifts and chin-ups. I ain't scared, no hiccups. I'm in the driving seat now, so you can keep your pickups. Witness the fitness, yeah, let's do sets. Forfeit and watch your face do a bench press. I'm steady on the grind. Stop watching me, cause man, it ain't your time. Step aside or get clapped from behind by I'm a bully, so what's yours is mine. Listen, I'm steady on the grind. Stop watching me, cause man, it ain't your time. Step aside aside or get clapped from behind. I'm a bully, so what's yours is mine. They say the root to all evil is deceiving your people, pulling them egotistical stunts. Them evil Knievels, not even me believing my dreams. Releasing my people from shackles and chains, vaccinating our kids with these measles. See that modern day plague leaving diseases and fever. Even someone as measly as me can breathe when he needs to. Oxygen is a privilege as long as they need you. The media ain't quite the medium perceive when they feed you. Calories and feces on how you need to be seen. So trim and lean size 6 when you're really a 16. Look, understand this. Why you think they employ a couple of dogs, educating a cock and a Glock, holding a couple of rocks, turn them into a boss. Now they're thinking they're on top of that pyramid. You're a puppet on a thinner string, cells gold, MDF wood, and you ain't close to being genuine. This should be evident, me, I'm on levels heaven sent. As a rebel, I fight with the devil and ice will never win. None of my brethren's being left where the winter's been. We're riding off into the sunset upon a Pegasus. Sour my emphasis, your face is so evident, like you're sucking on lemon M&Ms. You need to get a grip. I'm not a clever bitch, where I piss I will never sit. I'm reimbursed in my first for the game, where's my beverage? Thirsty, man, give me a fucking drink. I'm steady on the grind. Stop watching me, cause man, it ain't your time. Step aside or get clapped from behind. I'm a bully, so what's yours is mine. Listen.
Cheers. Thanks.
Wow. Yeah, that hit me, that one. The video's great as well, but you can't see it.
Watch the mic.
But it's worth checking. Boom. Okay, so we're going on that one then. So that was Sus Bully, clap.
Yep.
So it's, again, the same as Jack's. It's under another name. Obviously, you're the producer.
Yeah.
Which is why we're here. To find out what went on with that track then.
Yeah, so I think what I do a lot is I do a lot of beat battles. So I was making a track for this Facebook group called The Beatin'. And The Beatin', they've got like people like Ty, Tall Black Guy, Kitchenader was supposed to be on there as well. Knick-Knack, DJ Knick-Knack was part of that group as well. So every like Friday, you'd like put forward a track, and whoever like.
Is this a private group?
No, it wasn't. It wasn't actually. No, it was just like just anybody, whatever level you were at and stuff. But yeah, somebody like would put forward a track, and everybody had to sample that track, and obviously like make an original piece of work. So I already started doing a track, which was quite jazzy, and then it was just the mood that I was in. I was supposed to go away with my girlfriend at the time, and then she cancelled at the last minute, so that annoyed me. And then I went to go watch a movie, and there was all these people like talking and stuff. So this that build up of like, just like I'm quite a chilled guy, so I make quite chilled beats and stuff. But it was just the mood that I was in at that time. Michael Douglas falling down. Yeah. So what happened was I ended up going to see the Defenders of Style an Office gig, and I remember just being like, yeah. It was just basically like the beats, like Jack Danz beats, just the beats that were there. It was just like, these are quite simple, but at the same time, there's a punch to it, there's a swing to it, and I literally just was like, right, I'm gonna scrap that beat that I just made. I went home. I was still, I still had all that energy, and it was just like just put all that energy together, just literally just went into it and thought, right. I'm just going to make this simple. I'm not going to just make it jazzy and like, overproduce it. I'm just going to make it as simple as possible. So it's kind of like thanks to Jack for inspiring me. But it's literally just like just chopping up the beats and just making like each pad kind of just like short and then trying to find a melody that went with it. So I literally it took me about an hour really just to make the track. Yeah, from start to finish.
What equipment are you using?
Now I use Ableton Push a bit, but I flip between that and Native Instruments Machine. Yeah, exactly, yeah. So it's like I know that one inside out, so I can just make like a beat in like, I don't know, maybe like 20 minutes because of the workflow that it's got. And I've had to learn how to use Ableton Push to kind of get that workflow as well.
So is it the same then? It's the same with Jack. You're just making like you were saying, the skeleton. You're making the skeleton beats. Is this how it's working with all the hip hop producers now? Skeleton beats.
I mean, it doesn't have to. The tracks don't have to be, like super complicated. It's about how you arrange it. Sometimes I think for me, it's like for me, it's a bit like cooking. It's like whatever's in your fridge at the time. It's like, right, okay, I'm gonna make a pasta. Have I got tuna? Have I got chicken? But do you know what I mean? It's like the ingredients. If the ingredients is there, especially for me when I'm sampling, if the ingredients is there, then that's cool. And plus, because I've experimented with different workflows, they're different, and because of the beat challenges that I do, it's like you might be doing, I don't know, like a crazy like progressive rock track of the 70s, or you might be doing a funk track, or you might be doing a jazz track. So you start to understand musical theory and like how things, like Jack was saying, is that how it's led. So like if you listen to a funk track, 9 times out of 10 the bass is going to lead the track. So then you're listening for the melody and the bass when you're listening to the track. But then if it's jazz, it might be the sax that's leading the track, or if it's, it might be the pianos. So as long as it's got a melody or something that you can draw off it, then, you've got a bit of inspiration. So a lot of like the seasoned producers, like when they talk about Jay Dilla, he already knows what he's going to do before he even touches the MPC. He's got an idea in his head, right, I'm going to use these drums, I'm going to use this kick, I might actually use the drums within the track. Do you know what I mean? So it's just getting a feel of what you want to do and just doing it.
What with this track in particular with Max, did you work together, or was it another internet?
Or was that the Susbully one?
No, the one before.
Yeah.
Yes, no,
yeah,
no,
Susbully one.
Yeah.
Oh right, okay. So basically, at the time, I just. So yeah, basically at the time, I just joined a label called Future Sound Matrix. They were guys that I met when I was doing the beat challenges and stuff, and they kind of called me on. So that was kind of one of the first releases. So basically, everybody, when we was like putting tracks together, we had like a Dropbox folder, and literally all we were doing was, the producers was just putting beats into these folders, and like the rappers were kind of like listening out for beats. But I think Sus must have seen the track on SoundCloud that time that I posted it for the beat challenge, and basically he just contacted me straight away and said, could I use that track? I was like, all right, okay, cool.
Nice. It's got the meters, clap your hands sample.
Yeah.
So what's the deal with that? It's too under the radar now. Is it just a Wild West as far as samples go? Is no one bothered? Do you like to clear samples? Do you like to use samples? I know what you're going to say.
Right, okay, yeah. Right, how do I put this? Right, yeah, exactly. The thing is, because of like sort of like my music business course and stuff, Danny's done it as well and stuff. Like we get the opportunity sometimes to talk to industry people, because obviously like the sample laws and stuff like that. There's old wives' tales and like there's like confusion sometimes about it and stuff. But from an industry point of view, if that sold like 5 million, then I'd be worried. But like speaking to publishers, they're like, well, look, there's nothing to worry about.
So publishers aren't worrying about it.
Well, the thing is, it's going to cost them more legal fees taking me to court than it is to sort of allow it. So I mean, the thing is, one thing they can do. Yeah, it's all right. One thing I think, like, if stuff's on like YouTube, they've got things called content ID. So say for instance, somebody steals my track and the rapper just starts rapping it and stuff. If I've registered that track on like SoundCloud or YouTube with content ID, the algorithm should be able to pick it up, notify me, and then say, right, either you can issue a takedown or whatever kind of money's going on that channel, then you get that money, which I think is kind of fair. Also, when it comes to clearing as well, it's how do you actually get contact to some of the, some of the rights. Yeah, exactly, yeah. It's not easy sometimes, because when you think about it, say if you sample something from a label, I don't know, like Arista or something like that, or an old label from like the 70s, you know, they probably got bought out by, you know, a big label, because all the major labels now kind of own everything. So it's kind of like, well, who do you get in contact with? How do you get in contact with somebody?
For the sound, lad. For one sound. Really?
But then what did they do? Did they take you to court, or did they just say, right, okay, can you take that down?
You said what you're saying, like whatever you earn, they can have. So I
Yeah.
private, lad, and sent it to everyone. Copyright infringement.
Not to go deep and go along with it, but I think a lot of things are changing now because everything's going digital. And like in America, they've got the Music Modernization Act, and then over here it's going to be Article 13. So basically, like a lot of things are going to change. But one of the things that I think they should really do is make it easier for people to come forward and say, well, look, you know, I want to use this or whatever. I've left a link on the event page. There's a company called Tracklib, and they've basically, like, I think they either done deals with the rights holders or they bought the rights for certain tracks. So people, producers like ourselves, we can like download a track for £2, and then if we wanted to sort of put that track out, depending on what the tier is, they can take like, I don't know, 10% off whatever your earnings are. So it's kind of like you don't have to worry about it. So everybody gets money out of it. But I think the thing is, because sometimes people come to me and they'll say, oh, well, you know, because you sample, you're stealing tracks and stuff. But if you think about it, well, I had a conversation with a guy that who he used to DJ on Jazz FM, and like we were talking about jazz, and I said, oh, I like Bob James, and he was like, Bob James, that middle of the road, like jazz musician. I was like, what do you mean? Bob James is awesome. And as soon as I started to explain to him that, you know, I listened to his stuff to sample, he saw it differently because I'm consuming music in a different way to him. And the thing is, imagine if people weren't sampling. I know Bob James because of the stuff that, you know, like my favorite producers have sampled off of him. But if nobody was sampling Bob James stuff, what would a generation like mine or underneath, would they be bothered about it? It's like, there's a song called Talking All That Jazz by Stetsasonic, and basically they want it because they were talking about this whole thing of like James Brown. Before like James Brown was getting sampled, nobody knew who James Brown was. And this is the whole thing about like people discovering music. I go to record stores to create dig. I don't know, I might pick up a Steely Dan record because I know Kanye West samples Steely Dan, and it's like, right, okay, well, because Kanye West has sampled Steely Dan, I'm going to see what is so great about him. That's money that's, you know, obviously going to their estate. Do you know what I mean? It's like if people weren't buying those records or looking for those records, then, you know, if your career ended like 20 years ago, you know, that's your career. But if people are buying your stuff, then, you know, it's your legacy is like, you know, going on and on and on.
What's your? Are you working out of a studio as well? Or,
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's. I was going to say the. What's your? I'm always interested in people's policy in the studio for some reason.
Yeah, I think mine's a bit different for
tougher than Jack's.
Jack's. Yeah, just a little bit.
Yeah. There's nothing looser than Jack's studio policy.
Oh gosh, I think mine's a bit like Jay Dilla's. Jay Dilla's got a sign. I won't repeat what it says on there, but it's quite similar to Jay Dilla's. I think it's like basically, yeah, no smoking. If you want to smoke outside, it's cool. Yeah, if you got cans, that's cool and stuff, but. It's all about the performance, really. It's
You're there
like
to
if
work.
you go in, you do your thing, it's cool. Because usually it's like, you know, people rock up at 8 and then finish at about 12 or whatever. So it's kind of like, well, you know, got neighbours and everything. Let's just rock it up.
I was surprised at how quick you did the tracks because, you know, you just hear all these endless overnight sessions and 12-hour things that are going on. That doesn't seem to be the case with you guys. You're just smashing it out.
Yeah. But
Yeah.
But it depends who you're working with, because, you know, if you're just starting out, then that's kind of different. But, you know, if you're really serious about doing a track, you know, it's about learning your lyrics before you get to the studio. Yeah. You know what I mean? You don't have to be like someone like Busta Rhymes, you know what I mean? Or like Jay-Z and it's all stored in your head. But, you know, it's like, be serious about it, rehearse it. know what you're going to say, know about the track, get the good feel about the track, go in, and what I try to do, even though I'm not an MC anymore, do you know what I mean? It's like, I'm one of those people that I'll try and help you. You know what I mean? It's like, what's the concept? What's your idea? What are you all about? And it's all about like channeling that energy and that performance into the track so that it's like one whole thing.
I noticed with your music, there's a positivity and a message in a lot of it. Is that something that you insist on, or are you just choosing to work with certain people? Or
I suppose that's kind of sort of who I am, really. I think as far as like my beat tapes and stuff, some of those stuff is kind of like my own personal journey. So I've put like some of my own feelings kind of into those tracks. So it's kind of hard sometimes. Like Jay Bravo's been able to get a lot of my tracks just because he's kind of been respectful and he's had like the right song for those tracks. Because some of those tracks, yeah. Because I don't know. It's like, I don't know, I might have had a bad breakup, or one of the songs might have been dedicated to my mum or my dad. So I don't want somebody coming and like saying something that kind of defiles that. Yeah, it's like some tracks are going to be kind of like your babies, really, innit? It's like, say for instance, one of my tracks was like my daughter. You won't want your daughter to be, dating, you know what I mean? Dating somebody that's like, somebody that you don't approve of, do you know what I mean? That's the kind of metaphor that I go with, so.
Well, one thing I noticed, like Jack, sorry.
I was going to say, like, one of them ones like that is, you've got to tell them about, it's what my favourite track is, What Did You Be Speedo?
Oh, maybe sometimes.
That's like, wow, that's like a classic perfection moment for me.
Do you wanna hear about, yeah, oh, I don't think we've got, yeah, we could play that later, I think, but. No, I think, yeah, that was when I was making the Uncanny album, and I think Speedo was performing for on the Jungle Brothers gig and stuff. So it's like I really want to work with Speedo because I've known him for years and stuff. Got him in. He did a freestyle over like one of the tracks in the studio, and he just literally just went in, just did a freestyle just off the top of his head, and it was just like, right, okay, cool, that one's done. And it was like, what else have you got? So we just literally just went through my catalogue, and I've had all these like boom bap tracks, do you know what I mean? Like, some hard ones, some jazzy stuff. And then I had this experimental one, and I played that to him. And so it's kind of like jazzy, neo-soul-y kind of stuff. And it was just like, yeah, I'll have this. And I thought, really? This is just an experiment? But it was just like, yeah. So then he literally just had the meat and bones of it. He just literally freestyled the meat and bones of it. So some of it was kind of like a scat kind of thing. He didn't really have the words, but you can see the melody and stuff. And it was just like, I can't believe this. We literally just made a track just like that within like half an hour. So then literally he went home, kind of worked on it with a songwriter, and then we went back in and recorded it. But it was just one of those things where I think for me sometimes when I'm making tracks, I throw acapellas on just to kind of get a feel of like what kind of a track it's going to be, and like, whether I need to, I don't know, put a chorus in, or whether I need to like maybe add some synths to it. But yeah, with this track, it was just literally just me experimenting with it, and I kind of just thought, like, okay, this is an experimental track, but I didn't expect him to come and actually do it, and then it have the kind of response that it's had, like being played on like BBC radio and stuff. So
yeah, that's nice. Whenever you're making music, and I know Jack's quite a hardcore underground artist, as it were, but reaching globally. Do you ever think of the commercial end game when you're doing something? Think, if I just put that in, this might reach the radio. Does that ever occur, or do you just?
No, I just, for me, here we go. I'm going with my metaphors and stuff, but it's literally just like there's a difference between your home cooked meal, traditional meal, and then something that you would make to mass market. And like for me, it's just like, well, I think that's your mic, yeah. Basically, like for me, it's just I want to make good music. So sometimes it's whatever I'm feeling at the time, or it's just literally like what kind of like feeling I get from the track. So I don't know, I might get some records on that. One of them's the Bossa Nova track, and I'm thinking, right, well, either I'm a feeling there and I'm gonna try and make a Bossa Nova track into kind of like hardcore boom bap, or I'm gonna just like make it just like jazzy. I don't know. It might just be like I'm listening to a track and then like the chorus is talking about how I'm feeling at the time, so I might be feeling low, but this thing's like uprising, or I don't know, it might be a breakup, and you know it's got like a funny chorus. I don't know, and I might just pick that track just for that, just for the chorus, and think, right, this is how I'm just going to express how I'm feeling at the time. But I don't think about the end game. I think that's something that you do with whoever you're working with. Kind of like, right, what do we want to do with this track? Because you can think to yourself, all right, yeah, I want to make something like really commercial that everyone wants to hear. But like I say, I don't know, Jack Danz might want to speak on it, and it's just like, you know what I mean? It's like that energy's shifted somewhere else. So
yeah, fair play. What did you do there, Ed? Something changed when you. Oh, was it? That's true. It's a bit of a cheesy question, but who are the best MCs you've worked with? I didn't really want to go down that route, but it's, I'm always interested.
Man. Yeah, everyone for Leeds. Yeah, I have to big up. Oh man, yeah, Sus Bully. I've already done one with him, but he's done stuff with my friend Michael down south, Michael Johnson. Yeah, Black Keys. He's done a lot of tracks. In fact, because obviously this went out on Sus Bully's album, but I'm just a music lover, and my mate Michael, he made a track with Sus Bully, and whenever I hear it, it just hits me there, because there's a kind of a feeling to it. There's a message to it. But it's real. It's hip hop. It's real. It talks about the like the whole kind of situation down in London and stuff. It's got a message to it, but it's not trying to pull any punches, if you see what I mean. So whenever like I hear that track, I talk about that more than the one that he's done with me, kind of a thing, because it's just literally just, I love music, you know what I mean? So yes, definitely Sus Bully is like one of the guys that I kind of respect. But like Jay Bravo as well, like when we're in the studio and stuff, we'll just keep talking, and then we'll just talk about anything. But then when it comes down to sort of like actually recording stuff, like I said, he's got a concept. He knows what he wants to do. It's like he'll say, oh well, let's get Speedo on to sing the chorus, or let's get Lara to go do this. So it's really great to work with, because it's two people putting in kind of like that creative energy to make a track. And to me, that works better than trying to pull something out of somebody, if that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. Has anyone got any questions for Mr. Agent M?
Go on, Danny.
Right, so I know you from Greece College of Music.
Yeah.
So, don't mind me asking, what was your experience like there, and if any, what kind of impact did it have on your music career? Do you know what my experience?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Yeah, I suppose for context, obviously Danny was the year before me, so he's the first person to do the music business sort of degree. So obviously, like your experience, because it was just starting, was a little bit different. I think for me, I think for me, I really enjoyed the experience, not just the whole sort of like learning the lessons and stuff, but actually being like, how do I put this now? Basically just being surrounded by like creative people, and having that opportunity to be like, all right, okay, I might be sat in a cafe and sat next to somebody who's a bassist, or somebody that's playing guitar, or somebody who's a jazz singer, somebody that's classical, but you don't know that unless you actually go out and actually have a conversation. And the funny thing is, it's kind of like, I would say it's like the music business course is a bit like Chandler from Friends, where everybody's like, oh, what do you do? And you have to explain every time, like, what exactly do you do? But after like the second year, it's like, because I had to learn to kind of market and brand myself, people start to see, oh, hold on, you were on Alan Raw. Oh, hold on, you were like with these guys and you were like performing at Carnival. Oh, I've seen you on Instagram or whatever. So I totally understand it from a creator's point of view, because business people can be kind of shady. Do you know what I mean? It's like you do a deal with somebody and they can literally just take your money and you don't see anything. So obviously you're going to be like, well, why should I trust you? So you have to kind of prove yourself from a business point of view of, you know, if you say, oh, well, I'll get you stuff on radio, or, you know, I'll try and get you gigs. You know, you have to have some sort of clout, because there's lots of people out there that says, give us £50, give us £100, you know, we'll promote you or whatever. And all y'all doing is filling their pockets. So it's a good business from their point of view, but it's not good for you, is it? So, but yeah, for me, literally, the whole experience was really good because, you know, I got to apply it while I was here. So, you know, obviously for me, I got to learn certain lessons, meet industry people, but at the same time, help other people. Like, for instance, Danny got me a gig. Yeah, but that was really cool because I was talking to Jack about it. Seeing Bus Driver perform live inspired me to buy the same drum machine that he had, because literally he did his whole, the SP404, because literally he did his whole set with it. He didn't have a DJ or anything. It was just literally a small drum machine, smaller than this, and a mic put inside it and just plugged into, like, you know, the PA system. But the whole fact of, you know, that, you know, he got me a gig, you know, in a nightclub and stuff like that. And, you know, obviously it's like, it's getting my name out there with, you know, a recognised act. You know, for me, that's one of the positives about the course, is that you're surrounded by industry people, you're surrounded by musicians. You know what I mean? You could do this course in a university and you go in the cafe and you're sitting next to a law student and a computer student, you know what I mean, a marketing student, and it's like, right, okay, but yeah, I need a rapper. Where am I going to find a rapper? Whereas if you're in a conservatoire, you've got everything there, and you earn the right to be there as well, because whatever you do, it shows that course actually works. The other thing is sometimes is, and you'll know this, it's just literally sometimes the, I suppose, the lessons and the coursework can be set by someone else. So the tutors might want to add stuff to the lessons, but literally they can't, because, you know, it's like this university says, well, this is what you're doing for this year. So
does that answer your question, Dan? I like it. No, I can see that you're certainly, like I was saying, with Jack's crafted a sound which is crazy, that it's becoming his. For you, you can see that things are changing and you're on the rise. There's just the way you're presenting yourself and how you're going about your business. So something's worked there. So I know you've been at it a long time, but I mean that with all respect. It's moving on. You can see you're going somewhere. So it's and that's good, because some artists you meet, they're just wandering around, but there's a mission.
Yeah.
But yes, I think that's. Can we have a round of applause for Mr. DJ Agent Ed? Okay, and on to our third and final guest. Where do we start? With Oddball. First started listening to him on Kiss FM. That's when I arrived in Leeds, 92. He had a major label deal with Khalif. I used to read about him when I lived in Blackpool, as he was billed by Hip Hop Connection as the British De La Soul. He was so he was already a star, a hip hop star and a bit of a pioneer. He was part of the birth of Low Life Records, which went on to, influence Jack, no doubt. So yeah, Ed's. We could run a 4-hour seminar on Ed. He's one of my favourite performers in Leeds anyway. Just whatever you put him in front of, whether it's a karaoke night or a funk band or whatever, he can do it. He's just a showman. So I thought it'd be nice to hear what you're doing production wise. I know that's what you teach now, and you've always had a background in it. And then maybe have a little chat about what you're showing people now and how they get into the industry and the lessons you learned and some of the daft things that happened in hip hop.
Cool. Yeah, of course. No problem.
So can you play us a tune, Ed?
Yeah.
So what's this one?
I had a couple that I did, but this is one of my, I think, favourites. It's different to these guys because I call my stuff meat and bones because I'm just like a bedroom producer. I don't even rhyme on it or nothing, even though I'm like, everyone knows me, I'm lyrical. I don't even play my beats. I don't really have a SoundCloud page. This is like my respite. Of when
So this is a personal insight into
and
unheard sounds.
This is a weird track because I just liked it because it was raining, and then I was using this sample, and I was like, I'm going to use it. It's like some old 70s crazy thing, but it's raw anyway, so let's have a go. I'll explain the shuffles and all the shakers. I said the rain's making music. I said the rain's making music.
First time ever heard in public.
Did you have a few glitches there?
Yeah, man.
You need a good machine, that's all.
So with a little bit of a different angle, we're not going to the creative process. I think that finding out what these two guys are pushing them ahead of the others was part of that. But with you, it's more, now you're teaching and you've been through being signed in a big way, and top 40 singles and all the rest of it. Yeah, what happened? what was this deal with Khalif? Because you weren't Breaking the Illusion. Obviously, was the British De La Soul. That was the PRs. Yeah. Everyone was going nuts for it.
That was just me and Tom. Shout out to Tom Stewart. He's coming back to Leeds. Can't wait. And Stephen's got the name. I call him the son of BTI because he's like, if we was kept going, I'd have loved to have done what Stephen does. So he keeps it going. He's kind of took the torch.
Well, what equipment were you using with BTI?
We started off on Ataris. Like, there's a funny story. We bought an 808 drum machine off a guy called Homer Harriet, another classic guy from Leeds, musician. I went to live in West Indies for like 6 months, and I came back and Tom was like, "Hey mate, I've got this," and there's like this green screen monitor, and I was like, "What the fuck?" Kicking off at him, "What's happened to the 808?" And he goes, "Oh no, I got rid of that." And he goes, "Oh, I lent it to George for the weekend, Nightmares and Wax," and he made Dextrous on it, and I was like, "Why did you do that? That's like, you just killed our careers." This guy just, so it's like one of those weird things, and we just started using that and coming through the whole spectrum of the original, like the 80s, 90s old machines that were like 3-second sampling and stuff like that.
So that's like 87,
yeah,
88, 89.
the mad stuff like that. And then just seeing the whole progression, and like Steven saying, with samples and people getting sued, and we just did it. And obviously we just, like, same kind of thing that's happening now, so it's nice to hear. You just make the music first, and you don't think about who's gonna, you don't even know what you've got. It's just a record you bought from the charity shop. You don't, until you start appreciating the artist more and kind of becoming more of an actual musician, you're just messing about with it. It's like any kind of art form, you're just doing it as a thing to express yourself, isn't it? And then you go, "Oh shit, I can do this," or "I'm good at it," and you grow into it. And like you were saying before, not everybody does it or can do it that way, and some people, it's not even about making it, it's just about just doing it as a process. And
it's the process.
Yeah.
I hope we've got into the process tonight, because that's what it was about, really, is finding the process. Did we get the process with you, Jack? Yeah, we got the process. That was the bit. Did we get the process? So when after breaking the illusion, I love the studio rules. Yeah. Contrasting.
My studio rules: make sure my daughter's in bed. She uses this more than me now. No, it's mad. She's like, "Daddy, music," and she gets on and she's tapping them. I've got some film of her using it. Yeah, natural rhythm just smashes me. Yeah.
So what happened with Khalif then? How did you get that? I don't want to do like the history of. I'm just interested in that deal, because it was a big thing.
Obviously, like me and Tom, kids in the bedroom, got signed to a label in Manchester called Play Hard at 16. That's when the De La Soul
David
thing
Aslam's
came out.
label.
Yeah. And I remember going to Manchester, and one of our managers, a guy called Nathan McGough, he was like, we were like young cocky kids, like, "Oh, why are you looking after us? We're the shit. Why are you looking after us?" And he's like, "Oh, I've got this other band I'm working on, I'll be back in a minute." And that was the Happy Mondays. So back then, I was in Manchester, like in an office with like Stone Roses, Happy Mondays, people like that. And we're
Buzz B was signed to that
and
label.
we're just like 16-year-old kids with like funky haircuts, trying to be like cool. And these guys were like legends, and we were like trying to like boss them around. It was quite funny. And then that was really funny, because obviously I did that and then came back to Leeds, and me and Tom stopped making music, and obviously the low-life thing kind of fell apart, and Joseph went to London and took it off and made it this massive empire that he did, which was amazing.
So was Joe a part of your...
Joe was like Tom's protege. I went away and I came back and he's like, "Oh, there's this kid." And I'm like, "Who's this kid? Who's this kid you're working with?" Like, and that was Joe. And then Brain Tats came out, and then we started, we kind of sent stuff to labels, and they were like, "Oh yeah, it's cool," but no one was really going for it. So after the Play Hard thing, we were like, "Well, what do we do?" And we just decided, we saved $1,000 up, made our own records, and recorded it at Tom's flat just down there across the road. And that's another thing about production, like in it, Monks, what do we call Tom? Like Timmy Toppy Treble, because he's mixing, he couldn't mix for shit.
Well, we're back to the mix then, yeah.
But he can't mix for shit, right? His sound was like, wow. But yeah, just in case, because he's my boy, and a lot of it then, it was just like you say, you're just doing it and
that's what I was saying about Jack. You can't take it for granted, can you?
Nah, we could have done with Jack back then, but that's part of the process and part of the journey, isn't it? Like, you just make it, and like people like Cocky, where's Cocky? Yo! He was like 10-year-old kid, Roughneck Juniors, coming to ours, and they were like a little band we were working on and making beats for them and all that kind of stuff way back then, and they were doing gigs, and I kind of did a gig, and one of these guys from Manchester was like, "Oh yeah, you're really good," and I was like, yeah, whatever. And then I remember, I don't know how back then there was like no phones, no Instagram, none of that, and my mum was like, this boy was ringing you on the phone, I don't know who he is, calling you saying he wants you to come down to Manchester, and I'm like, what? And he was like, "Oh, I want you to be in the band," and I was like, and they were signed, obviously, they got signed. They were like a UK band. They got signed for $250,000 to London Records. And I remember seeing them on like TV and thinking, oh, they were a bit like Cypress Hill and Onyx. It was weird. And I wasn't really into them, to be honest. But they asked me, and I went down, I had to audition. And Pete Tong was the A&R man. And I was like, what the fuck's going on? Pardon my language. I was like, what's going on there? And he was kind of like, the band signed, who's this guy? And they were like, well, one of our guys leaving, we really like him. And I had to audition. at this gig.
What was the audition?
I was at Brighton Zap Club. It was reel to reel. I like to move it. We were on then. He was on, and then The Prodigy was the headline act. And I didn't have a mic or nothing. And I remember I was just doing that to the crowd and just hyping them up. And that was me. I got into the band. And then about a couple of months later, they were like, "Oh, can you rap?" And I was like, "Yes, I can. Of course, I can rap. I'm better than anyone in the world." You know, back 17. You know, and then I started. Obviously, I could DJ because that was one of the things I started off as a DJ. And then obviously the production side, because of watching Tom, I learned to produce that way. So then we did this first album that was done, and that was great because I was like outsider looking in. I wasn't really in the band properly. I was like just finding my feet. And that was great because it was like we were touring and we were doing lots of student gigs in Europe and all that kind of stuff. And then the second album came and we were kind of like, the first album was like a true hip-hop album. It was like a dedication to the old school, rocksteady, Zulu Nation kind of, that hip-hop thing. And we brought it out and obviously everyone was like, it's all right. So we were like, I was like, you know what, let's do stuff what we grew up to listening to. Let's not sample James Brown, let's sample like, my mum likes the Pretenders or Annie Lennox, and I used to listen to that stuff, so we started sampling that kind of thing. And the second album was more shaping up like that. And at the time, London Records were kind of like, we don't know if we're going to keep the deal. And back then it was, when you start making money from music or from anything you're doing, you don't really want to let go of it, do you? Because it's your income. So we were kind of like, we're just on the edge of losing this deal. And we was making more demos and doing different stuff. And I sampled Golden Brown. And at the time, it's a really weird time stretch. It was like a 3/4 beat. And all I did is I sampled it like on a 4 pad and I just put an extra beat on the end to make it a 4/4 kind of loop. And we was recording in Manchester, 'cause that's where the band was based. And we was in PWL, Pete Waterman's studio. And he's in there like, "Oh, what are you lads doing?" And we're like, "Oh, we're trying to save our lives and get signed again." And we didn't want to not lose. And he was kind of like, one of the guys said to him as a laugh, "Oh, if you like it, why don't you sign it?" And then he was like, "Oh, you never know, I might do." And then next thing you know, we've signed to this horrible pop label.
PWL?
PW Hell, as I called it.
PW Hell.
But it happened. And the next thing, obviously we're signed again. You're like, "Oh, yeah, I can pay the bills." And it's live in Manchester still. And we started working on this second album. And a lot of the songs were like more hooky commercial samples that you guys were talking about back then. But back then we were kind of like, it's that era of, as long as it still had the drums on it, that's why my drums always knock. Like I'm like, as long as it's got that hit and that boom bap, we can get away with it, guys. I was like, this bot's clever, let's do something. And we did do it. We're like, yeah, let's be not successful. And we were like, yeah, we want to be popular, like not pop but popular. We wanted to keep going traveling, and it was a good experience in that sense. But we kind of went from like people on the street were like, "Oh, you lot have almost like turned into a boy band," and it did feel like that sometimes because we were doing like Radio 1 road shows with like, I don't even know the acts back then.
Wearing vests and
yeah,
I remember the whole thing.
The kind of guys who you see on like Channel 5 like talk shows now, and you're like, who the hell are them? They were guys we had to like warm up for and like win, and it was really weird. We were like doing these gigs and we started wearing like, looking like Boys to Men, wearing the same jumpers like to get this recognition thing, and then these other acts were like wearing bandanas and like doing weird stuff. And obviously like this one of my funniest things, we used to go to the annual London Records party, and we went down there, and East 17 were obviously like the big band then, and they were like, yo, what you saying? And he was like, "Oh, can I wear your bandana?" And he put his bandana on, and he was walking around with this big spliff in his mouth trying to look cool, and then he lit it, and he was like, just caught the end of his bandana and just like burnt his eyebrow, and he was talking to us, and we just kept talking to him, and then he was just like, and we were like, yes, one for the underground. So we had loads of good times. Like I said, like there's a lyric that I wrote, because after all that ended, like I said, I lived in Manchester for 5 years.
How did it end? I know.
Well, the deal was coming to an end, and us as a band, we weren't getting on because it was like, in my eyes, two of us took it seriously. We wanted to make a career of it, and the other two guys back then, don't get offended, they were just wanting to be rappers, and they were just wanting to be like, yeah, like just wanted and we were like, no, come on, it's a serious thing. We kind of saw the vision of what you could do back then, and it just kind of, we were like, it's falling apart, let's just let it end gently. And we did a couple of really good gigs. Like,
do you ever talk to them now, the guys?
I speak to Mush still, but I find it really hard personally, because it was such a hard time because of the industry. I mean, like, there's a record record.
Feels like you've been on the X Factor when the way you talk about it.
No, well, it's maybe pre-all that. Maybe it's that kind of thing. But for me, there was the real point that crushed me was we did this song like samples again. I sampled this song called Clanad. My friend Miller, wherever he's in Leeds, he used to watch this Robin Hood thing. He goes, "Oh, you should use that song," and he always used to sing it to me, pissed. And I was like, "Stop singing this song." So Sands of Time. So we sampled it, and we thought, let's write a song about someone. If someone was dying or someone was gonna, what would you say to him? And my sister had died previously. She died of AIDS, and back then that was like a big thing. So I wrote this song about my sister, just let it all out, and nobody in the band knew, and we were all like, when we wrote it all. And then obviously the label were like, "Oh, this is really wow, this is amazing, Paul." Like, marked it off Radio 1, everyone, "Oh yeah, record of the week, it's amazing, we're gonna do it." And then back then you didn't have internet, you had like reaction sheets, like record pools. So you got all these reaction backs, and then people were like, it was getting to release, and people were like, "I don't want to hear about this guy's dead sister," and people just being blatant, like original keyboard warriors, like really bad stuff. And then they were like, the label getting turned off, and they were like, "We're going to release it at Christmas." And if you're like an artist, that's like the worst time to put out music, because no one's buying music then. So I was like, nah. Like people, when I flip, it's not, it doesn't happen very often because I'm a peace guy, but that was like, wow. So I was like, I said to the guys, "I'm going to London." They're like, "What do you mean?" I said, "I'm going down to the offices." And they were like, "Oh, shit." And I remember, this is a true story. I went down to Jive Records. Can't remember the guy who used to run it then. Walked in, proper rap style, kicked the door in. And I was like, "If you put this record out at Christmas, I'm going to come back, I'm going to burn down this office." And I was dead serious. I swear I would have done it. Because it was like, it'd gone past the industry thing. It'd gone past all that. And next thing you know, by the time I got home, he was like, "When do you want to put the record out then?" And we got total control of it. And what we did is we didn't do any promotion for it. We just played it to like all the local stations who used to support us, and all those people went to them, and we did that. And it went like 20, 26, 27 in the charts without any promotion. And then they wanted to promote it, and we were like, "No, see ya, we're done." And we kind of left with a middle finger to the industry kind of thing. So that was kind of like our last thing. And then I came back to Leeds, and obviously Lee Kenny, everyone knows LSK, super talented guy. He was like, "Oh, I'm signed to Sony," and I was like, "Oh no, here we go again." And he's like, "No, I just want you to just play beats and just tour with us." So luckily, I was back on the road again, because it's a really weird thing, right? Imagine like every day you kind of know what you're doing, or you're traveling, or you're going to Germany like once every weekend and doing shows out there and living in hotels. You get used to that lifetime. It's not, I never made any money like that, but I did live that kind of, so that was really great. So when I came back, it was weird not doing that. And then after Lee came, I did that, and I wrote this song, and it was like, I wrote this verse, and it was like, "From the bedroom to the business in back, still intact. There's a wilderness of rats, now it's me and my 4-track. A pack of cigarettes, I feel regrets, yep. But some things are just best left unsaid. Been around the world and I got nothing to show, but better yet, I got paid by reality check. I met a few souls that was better than gold, shaking hands with the devils, oh my God, they were cold. Behold, people of the music, whatever you feel, the industry will kill the vibe, whatever you deal. Real music's gonna make it one day, it will. Real music's gonna make it one day, yeah." So I wrote that, and that was kind of like, I remembered it. And then after Lee Kenny finished, I was like, "Well, what am I going to do now?" And obviously with Monks, we started doing workshops, and I was like, I like doing this. And it was just teaching kids to DJ. And then obviously I got the job at MAP. And that was different for me, because I wasn't, like I say, I was always doing music. I was always music. I never really took anything else seriously. From like 15, I was like, yeah, I wanted to do it. Like he was saying, it's something you knew you had in you. So school was a bit of just a joke. So I didn't, and then obviously the job at MAP came, and went back to university, did a good degree, worked with Marcia, was like an acclaimed artist. Marcia was like, she's the Don. She's like mastered up to the hilt, and she just works at MAP, and without her we couldn't have done it all in the beginning. So we did that, and then started working with the kids and finding my feet there and teaching them little things what I knew and just production. But then it became more of it's not even about the qualifications like secondary, that's for the school. The talent thing's even secondary as well, because not everyone's going to come in and be able to get it or make it. It was more about the social thing and just giving something back that way, and just watching these kids flourish, and just or you see them later on in life and they're like, oh, thanks, sir. I was really like going the wrong way and we did that. And she knows I'm going to talk about her because she's here. Like one of my favorite students is Taylor. She's right there. And Taylor, when she came, she used to do music, and I don't know how long it took. She never used to talk for like months. And she used to get really good ideas. And we were like, yeah, well, what do you like? And I like this program where we chopped it up, like Orange is the New Black. That was one of the things we chopped. Yeah, I remember everything. We chopped it up and we made a little beat out of it. And she got into it that way. And she did it. And then she was kind of like, oh, like I want to try and make a video thing. And I was like, I don't know how to do that. It's not my thing. I can make beats all day, but I wasn't up on technology. That's the truth.
So we're going to see Taylor on here in a few years.
That's the next one. That's the continuation, yeah. And
Brilliant.
then Taylor we got this program for her, and she started doing video editing, and then now she's at college doing a degree, and she's going to be a filmmaker one day. So we'll be watching her. Shout out to T. And that's kind of where I've come full circle, and then
that's nice.
Yeah, it is. It's wicked.
Wow, where do
And now you get kids who come in and they go, yeah, I'll do music, and they come in and they want to watch YouTube videos all day. That's another thing, right? As musicians, right? As old school hip hops, and you'll know it as well, Monk. Innit? Like for years we've always been, and we sound like grumpy old men now, but like because this music's horrible now, this modern music, but it's kind of this mumble rap thing. But you've got to appreciate we were them like 10, 15 years ago, and it's all about cycles, yeah. So. Even though it seems negative and it is what it is, but they're still expressing themselves.
Yeah. Put a stick in the wheel and
yeah. But that's the journey and that's the progression, and that's why I love music. And even with this now, it's like I don't hardly use it, but when I do, it's like okay, like things like tonight get me a chance to come out and just mess about. And like doing like with Steve, like him and Michael with the Beat Club stuff, that was really good fun for me, just to try and do.
Be nice if you three got together and made
yeah,
something.
Let's do it, man. Super crew, super producers. Yeah.
Nice one off. So when you could talk all night with it, but when you're with the newer artists now and the young ones, and how do you get across this journey that you've been on? How do you get across the oh my God, we have to wear matching jumpers, and we got signed by Pete Wharton, one of the biggest guys in the world. Yeah, but the knowledge is there. The knowledge is there. You know.
Yeah, you know what? I don't tell the kids that because I'm not like oh I'm Paul, this bloody great musician. That's just my journey, and it's like yeah, that's wicked and it happened, but that was then and this is now kind of thing. So.
But it's a different journey to keep bringing Jack in, because Jack's like I tried to pull Jack out of what he was doing when I first met him, and I had all sorts of ideas for Jack because I just loved the crew. Mm-hmm. And he was strong enough to say, I don't want this. I'm me and I'm doing what I'm doing. Yeah, and it was amazing. And he stuck to that. And you just see Jack steadily rising. Every single year he just gets that tiny bit bigger. And you just think, Jack ain't going to stop. It's just until the end he's done. With you, it was like, and then you, oh my God, matching jumpers. Oh, we're being dropped. Whoa, I'm on an airplane. Oh, I'm with Lee Kenny. Oh, I'm teaching. And yours has been a real roller coaster. It's a different thing. I like this journey but it's hard. His is harder.
It's 1,000,001 stories, isn't it? Everyone's got a different story, and that's just the way it worked out for me.
But yours is a good one to teach where they're going and whether they're going into the Jack direction, which is just a solid.
And the music industry's changed. The music industry's like it doesn't really exist in my eyes anymore. Like. You know, people don't really get signed. Like for me, like we did this tour with the Fugees, and at that time they were going through what we were doing, but in America they'd done that first album and they were like, nah, you're gonna get dropped. And he was like, I'm gonna go to the Dominicans and the Haitians and get some drug money and put out my record. He was like, I was like, okay. And then that record was just breaking as he was doing it. They were actually over here and it was just breaking. And then they were like, just like they just blew up, and it was like wow.
So they thought they were on the way out as well.
Yeah, they were like, what we're gonna do? You know, what we're gonna do? And that first album like stunted them, and they just did what they wanted, and it was like, and then they found that formula and did that, and that was it. You know,
it seems like the only way to longevity.
But yeah,
the way to longevity is it's more the Jack way. It's the more that. You just stick to what you do and you steadily rise.
The Golden Brown thing, like I said, like we did that as a demo, and then it was really hard for me because there's a thing about signing. So we signed this, we just signed. We were like, we want money, and we just signed. We didn't even really think about it, right? And then we got this the reality where we went into the studio and there was like guys from like music college, yeah, but not like, and we were like, oh, you're not a hip hop producer, but they knew about chromatic scales and chords, and we were just like, oh, if that works with that, because that's hip hop, isn't it, right? But like now you're more technical now, and you know, EQing and everything like that. Back then it was like, no, it's just raw, and we just did it, and it worked. And we were going in the studio, and then these guys were like, just like in our eyes, they were taking over. And at first it was like a few conflicts, like they were locking themselves in the studio because we were like going to get in there and try and like kick the shit out of them. Because you're like, you destroyed our track, we've done all this, and what have you done with it? You made it all nice and shiny. And but that was the beast what we were getting into. We didn't realize, you know what I mean? So it was that stuff was really interesting. And then, like I say, with the Golden Brown thing, when it came out, because it wasn't even called that. It was called Dangerous Minds or something. The original. Well, that's what happened. This is the story. So Pete Waterman's like, oh yeah, I think they were. I know the guys or the publishing guys, and what you should do is if you're gonna pay for it, and it made sense at the time. It's like if you're gonna pay for it, you might as well just use more of the chunk. Don't take a half a bite. You know, eat a whole. Get a wedge. So he's like, use the vocals, and we rinsed it, and then we even called it Golden Brown. But on the downside, like say we had this hit record kind of thing, but then on the downside, the Stranglers got like 80% of it. But there's a nice story of it, because what happened then is Hugh Cornwall, the lead singer, he got me and Mush down to his house in Devon to do some production for him. Yeah, and we spent this weekend at his house and his little barn, like just making beats.
Apparently he's a difficult character. What was...
He was, well, I don't know what it was back then.
But he wasn't. Was he brilliant?
It was weird because he just came down and he's got his little studio and went, oh, just show us what you do, because he loves what we did with their stuff. And we ended up making these beats, yeah. But I remember sleeping in his barn like that. In one eye open, thinking, when's this going to go wrong? Like ding, 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 like waiting for something. Like, yeah, but we didn't get no. But that, to me, that was like, oh, that's a nice bonus kind of thing. Yeah, so... And it's one of those things, like I say, it's that sacrifice thing which you did back then, kind of like we were almost like we used to call ourselves like the hip hop martyrs, and then after that you had like people like people like Big Bros and all this stuff that started to cross over, but we wasn't trying to be that blatant about it, and maybe, you know, if we were, it could have been a different story if we were more blatant about it, and I could have been like sat there like loads of money in the bank, but like I said, it wasn't about that. It wasn't for us. It wasn't for me personally. It wasn't about that. And I think when it started to get out of control, that's when you're like, well, what are we really doing here? And we just walked away, and it was
brilliant.
easier.
And it's brilliant that you are around with Marcia, around all these kids. I think you're the man for the job. It's absolutely amazing that they get to see, because Leeds is devoid of a lot of industry. I've always tried to. You've got to get the industry to Leeds and get the people in Leeds to match the industry.
But Leeds is like, it's such a talented, there's so many people that are so talented. It almost reminds me of like...
But they all leave, they all move.
Yeah,
you have to leave.
You used to have to leave, like, you know, like the London, like I did the London, and I was there and I was remixing stuff for people and getting like money and good checks, and I was like, oh yeah, I could do this, but then it was like, I have to go and meet another person who's just talking shit just to get a deal. And I was like, yeah, I'm going back home. That's that track back in my mum's house in my little bedroom at 30. Like, but I was happy, and I was around my friends and my people, and that was it. And I just let everyone, and then you let it go, and you just let everyone else. You just watch people like Stephen grow, and that's like for me. Or you've got people like Cocky, who's like. My favourite rapper, like Bang.
Yeah, he
non-stop.
made one of the greatest.
He's a different story. He's a guy who's like should have been like Bang. You know what I mean?
We need to get Cocky on here.
Yeah, there's so many other people you could who's got stories to tell.
Well, we could do with you a fair Cocky. That would do, yeah. Yeah, we'll do that another time. Has anyone got any questions for anybody about anything, what they're doing, what you're doing?
I'm making some beats when I get in.
Making beats, innit? Yeah. We're gonna start this team. We're gonna start this big production team.
Can we have a round of applause for Ed Mead?
I've got a question actually quickly. So, how do you manage young people's expectations with them always looking at this torch of the industry and get signed to a label when you're in it?
different changing kind of climate? That's all.
To me, and to all of us. Yeah. To me, I tell them not to. Like I say, I said, like we said now, you don't need that. You need this. This is the industry now, or your phone's your industry. You know what I mean? It's like I hear kids coming in and they go, "Oh, sir, have you had RZ's new track?" And I'm like, "Who's RZ?" And I'm like, "Oh yeah." And 10,000 hits, like day release. Like wow, if I could have got that back then, like you know what I mean? So it's all about that now. It's about and. For me, like I watch a lot of them. They're like, "Oh, this guy's great," but then like 2 weeks later, it's someone else. So I kind of worry that side for an artist. I think, well, how do you keep your longevity, or how do you actually build a career as an artist now? But then it's different being an artist now because it's not like some of the guys. They rap because they want to talk about what they're doing on the road. You know what I mean? Or it's not about, "Oh, I've got a story to tell," or "I've got a message." It's just an expression, isn't it? And it's just the youth thing, and the people that come out of it. And make like, all right, here's a mad example like Stormzy, innit? When he did that, shut up, and everyone was like, wow, it's just a raw guy on the street. But he had, his vision must have been like, wow, and look what he did. He almost went from like Roadman of the Year to like industry darling in a heartbeat. But he must have known what he wanted to do, and I love him for doing that. But that was the thing back then. That was one of our complaints because we were like, well, if the industry did what the American industry did, and put, like you say, money into something, they would have got so much more back then. And I think some of them do it now, like examples like Stormzy or someone. They do that now. They'll invest into him as a proper, credible artist. You know what I mean? And obviously now as artists, they are more measured of what you want to do. You're not just some guy off the road who's don't know how to handle himself in a room full of business people and be like, well, I want 10 grand now, so I'm going to smash up the place because then I'm not going to sign you, are you? Like a Soul Solid situation, you know what I mean? That won't happen again now because the younger people are more wiser to it and they understand the industry.
Well, I was going to say, from my perspective, is just to teach people a bit about the business and kind of empower people. So it is kind of like what you're saying is you can't just say, all right, yeah, I want to get signed. It's, do you want to get signed? You know, build up your own fan base as you go. So at least that way you've got the choice of, right, okay, well, Sony's coming to me, right, okay, well, I don't want you to take all of my masters and what I've got, but I'll lease those things to you and you can distribute it for me. Do you know what I mean? Because obviously you know more than me that, you know, back in the day when you got signed, it was like a bank loan that you had to pay back. That's what I was going to say. You know what I mean? And that's the kind of model that people think that, you know, it's like Simon Cowell's going to come and think, right, you know, come with me and I'm going to make you a superstar. But then, you know, at the end of the day, it's like your career can tank. You know what I mean? It's like I remember Tommy Evans did an interview with Damage. Yeah. And it's like, for me, Damage was like the biggest like UK kind of like urban R&B act at that time. They were like, I don't know, Destiny's Child of like UK R&B. So you think to yourself like, yeah, these guys got top 20 hits, whatever. And then it's like, yeah, but they were lumbered with like a 30 grand debt. And like one of the main singers was working as a youth worker to pay off that whole debt. It's like, how does that happen when you're supposed to be this big, massive superstar? You're on, you know, all the magazines and everything.
Didn't know the business.
Exactly.
Like
and
my last check from the Khalif, my manager went, oh, here's your last payment, guys. You can, if I was you, I'd pay your taxes. And we were like, wait a minute, you went to our offices. We've been to see the tax man. And he was just scanning us, and we were just like. And then I got this letter when I lived in Manchester. Could you come to the Manchester tax office, please? You owe like X and X amount. And I was like, and I went there and I sat down, and they were like, oh, Mr. Edmonds, and I was like, no, Mr. Edmead, and he was like, oh, sorry, wrong guy. And I was like, wow. And that was it, yeah. But out of my last check, I did pay my tax on my last check. Some of the guys didn't, and it came back to bite them on the ass because you can't hide from the tax man. Like there's a guy I worked with, a famous R&B DJ, Steve Sutherland. Oh yeah. And he was notorious for that because we were getting cash in hand. Like obviously that was another thing I did. I used to like host him for MCing and we used to do IB for, and that was like, for me, I hated that because I was like, I
Yeah,
want to be
Steve's a
lyrical.
massive DJ.
Yeah, but that was another great journey, and like one of those things where you just landed on, like you were saying, I can kind of, you got to be able to turn your hand to anything, and it just worked. And that was just before Mappa. What happened to him is he was just like getting licked by he got licked by the tax man for like nearly 50K for just not sorting his tax out for like 5 years.
That's another talk.
You need to be a solicitor, man, or a lawyer. You're in the wrong business, man.
I think one of the other things I would say is kind of like, I think all of us, a lot of us are kind of experienced with like music and stuff. We can give back. I think from what I've seen is a lot of people are getting signed off YouTube, which is brilliant. But at the same time, there's a lack of, from an A&R part of view, artist development. So you can take somebody that's brilliant in the studio, but then all of a sudden, it's like you're putting that person on stage of like 5,000, 10,000, 20,000. Can they actually, do that? And it's one of those things of kind of coaching people to be able to say, well, look, what's your mic technique like? Even stuff like when you come to the show, how you're setting it all up and stuff. Just even like confidence and stuff like that, because when people sign you, it's just a case of like you either sink or swim, because they probably got 4 or 5 people and it's just Russian roulette. Do you know what I mean? It's like whoever is the best one is the best one, but your career could just you'd be on the high 1 minute and then low the other in it, and we want people to kind of succeed and have kind of like a longevity in the music. It's that list, so it's passing on those kind of things and just encouraging people in it. So
yeah, I can't really add much more, but I'd say tell them to be prepared. Like they need to love the music, like the actual that part of it. Do you know what I mean? It's there's obviously that sort of image that goes with getting signed, where you're just gonna like you used to get advances. I'm sure you got advances and all that stuff, but I don't really think that goes on anymore. Do you know what I mean? If these labels are approaching, you've got to ask yourself, what can they do for me that I'm not doing myself, or that I couldn't go about doing myself? I reckon these days it's about being self-sufficient and using the internet and social media to your best advantage, because that's pretty much how anyone's doing it. Do you know what I mean? And fair enough, you can pay to have a better advertising campaign on social media or within the internet, but there's still ways of doing it for free, like especially on platforms like YouTube, which is just one of the best platforms we've got, really. It's easy. You can literally blow up overnight.
You're getting well. You've got 50. You've got a lot of hits on some of your tracks, haven't you?
Yeah. I mean, some of those songs have been up for quite a while, but
don't play it down, Jack.
Modest.
Always playing it down. Yeah, that South Korean breakdance crew. Yeah, that's mad. I was looking on the iTunes. Basically, Apple Music have just launched a thing for artists where you can register your profile as in being an artist and see all where the plays are coming from and where the downloads are coming from. And the top country was Japan. And it wasn't just like one place in Japan, it was all over Japan in different cities and that. And I'm thinking, wow, I need to get myself to Japan. Yeah, it's mad. It's proper mad. Japan seems to be getting bang on that UK hip-hop at the minute for some reason. Capitalise, Jack and Steve. Has anyone got any more questions for the guys before we thank them for the time and sharing everything that they do with us? Well, there we are. Thank you to Jack, Paul, Stephen.
Thanks for having us, mate.
Yeah, I've enjoyed that.
Peace.